Have you ever looked at someone's life and realized their ambition is strong, their work ethic is intense, their public image matters deeply to them, and yet their body starts speaking through the knees, the bones, the calves, the skin, and the nervous system? That is where the 10th house becomes fascinating, because most people hear 10th house and think career status, profession, achievement, recognition. But I want you to see something deeper today. I want you to see that the 10th house is not just your visible karma, it is also the part of the body that has to bear visible karma. It is the structural load-bearing zone. It carries the pressure of climbing, standing, holding, enduring, and continuing. And the moment Vata increases here, the body tells the truth. You may still look functional, you may still be working, you may still be showing up. But underneath, the system starts drying out, destabilizing, cracking, weakening, trembling. This is why the 10th house is such a profound diagnostic space for healers and astrology students alike. When Vata rises in the 10th house, the classic expression is not random, it is structural. You start seeing knee cracking, joint instability, dryness in the knee joints, stiffness in the lower thighs, weakness while climbing stairs, reduced cartilage lubrication, coldness in the knees and calves, early degenerative patterns, dry skin, even shaking or tremor in the legs. And because Vata is never just local, you can also see the wider pattern: bloating, constipation, insomnia, loss of strength, nervous depletion, and a subtle feeling that the body no longer feels fully supported. Now let me take this deeper through the planets shown here. First, Saturn. If you want to understand Vata in the 10th house, you must understand Saturn. Saturn naturally rules dryness, chronicity, degeneration, slowing down, compression, stiffness, arthritis-type processes, weakness in the knees and calves, and long-standing depletion patterns. So when Saturn is involved with the 10th house, the issue is rarely just pain, it is usually wear, delay, fatigue, reduced resilience, and a sense that the body is carrying more than it can gracefully process. This is why some people do not break suddenly, they become brittle slowly. Saturn in a Vata aggravated 10th house can show a body that keeps performing while silently losing lubrication, warmth, recovery, and elasticity. The person may say, I can manage, but the body is saying, I'm compensating. Second, Moon. Now this is where it gets subtle. Moon is not dry like Saturn. Moon carries fluids, nourishment, emotions, rhythms, and the inner state of the mind. But when Moon gets entangled with Vata, especially in a structurally sensitive house, the person can swing between depletion and instability. One day there is heaviness, the next day restlessness, one day swelling, another day dryness, one night fatigue, another night insomnia. So Moon here tells you the 10th house problem is not only mechanical, it is also rhythmic and emotional. If the person is not emotionally held, physically rested, and mentally regulated, the knees and structural tissues begin to reflect that instability. This is why healers must never isolate the joint from the mind. In Moon-linked Vata states, the body loses coherence because the life rhythm loses coherence first. Third, Venus. At first glance, Venus may not seem central to the 10th house of knees and bones, but Venus matters because Venus carries lubrication, softness, tissue comfort, reproductive vitality, and the smoother, more refined side of bodily functioning. When Venus is dragged into a Vata-heavy 10th house pattern, you often get a very specific contradiction. The person looks polished, but the tissues are undernourished. There may be alternating dryness and congestion. The system may crave comfort but not truly absorb nourishment. And that matters, because structural weakness is not only about damage, sometimes it is about failure to restore. Venus here can show you that the body needs replenishment, not just discipline. It needs softness, not just pushing. It needs nourishment, not just productivity. Now let's talk about Rahu. Rahu amplifies, Rahu exaggerates, Rahu distorts normal limits. So if Rahu is tied to the 10th house Vata story, Then what could have been mild becomes excessive. The person pushes harder, ignores symptoms longer, becomes obsessive about output, and often does not stop when the body asks them to stop. This is where you can see unusual presentations, chronic skin issues, nervous agitation, strange pain patterns, hyperreactivity, or symptoms that feel disproportionate to what imaging or simple observation may initially suggest. Rahu makes Vata noisy. It can turn dryness into chronic irritation, instability into anxiety, and structural weakness into overcompensation. The person may live in performance mode, and because the 10th house is visible karma, Rahu here may bind self-worth to achievement so tightly that rest itself feels threatening. Then comes Ketu. Ketu reduces, Ketu disconnects, Ketu hollows out attachment. So when Ketu influences this 10th house Vata pattern, you may see loss rather than excess. Less tissue tone, less strength, less continuity, less interest in sustaining the outer role. The person may feel detached from work, detached from the body, or detached from the warning signs. This is where depletion becomes spiritualized. The person says, it's fine, I can transcend it, while the body is showing deficiency, weakness, undernourishment, or poor recovery. Ketu in these patterns can make structural decline quieter, less dramatic, but deeper. So if I bring all these planets together, what is the real teaching? The 10th house under Vata stress shows the cost of carrying life without enough internal lubrication. Saturn says the burden has become chronic. Moon says the rhythm is disturbed. Venus says nourishment is insufficient or not integrating. Rahu says the pressure is excessive. Ketu says the system is disconnecting from repair. That is not just an astrology reading, that is a healing map. And if you are a healer, I want you to really hear this. When someone presents with knee weakness, calf instability, dry skin, joint sounds, tremor, coldness in the legs, poor recovery, and insomnia, do not reduce it to a local complaint. Ask what load they are carrying. Ask what role they are overperforming. Ask where ambition has outrun embodiment. Ask whether the structure of life is stealing structure from the body. Because the 10th house is where karma becomes visible. And sometimes the body is the first place it becomes undeniable if you are an astrology student. This is the level I want you reading at. Not just 10th house means career. I want you to ask, what is the body part? What is the doshic pattern? What is the planetary amplifier? And what is the lived human behavior behind the symptom? That is where your interpretation becomes real. That is where astrology becomes clinically observant rather than merely symbolic. And that is where your healing language gains depth. So the deeper message of Vata in the 10th house is this. When life becomes too dry, too pressured, too cold, too fast, too effortful, the knees begin to speak. The bones begin to speak. The skin begins to speak. The sleep begins to break. And the body asks for one thing above all else, support. Not more image, pressure, not more performance. Support. If this kind of deep Jyotish Ayurveda teaching speaks to you, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And if you want me to continue through the remaining houses and dosha patterns with the same level of rigor, stay with the channel because we are building a complete healing language here. One house, one dosha, one karmic pattern at a time. And if you want a personal wellness reading to understand how these patterns may be showing up in your own chart and body, visit astrovagmi.com. I'll see you in the next one.